The alley behind Milano's restaurant smelled like rain and rotting garbage. My shift had run 3 hours overtime again, and the October wind cut through my thin jacket like ice. I pulled my phone from my purse to check the time, 2:47 a.m. Maya, you need to get home. Lucia has kindergarten tomorrow, and Mrs. Chum would charge me extra if I was late picking up my daughter again. I quickened my pace down the narrow passage between the brick buildings, my worn sneakers splashing through puddles that reflected the dim streetlights. This wasn't the safest route home, but it cut 15 minutes off my walk, and every minute mattered when you had to be up in 4 hours to get a 5-year-old ready for school. The sound hit me first. A grunt, then the shuffle of feet against wet concrete. You thought you could cross us and just walk away? The voice was rough, angry. Brooklyn accent. I stopped, pressing myself against the cold brick wall. My heart hammered against my ribs as I peered around the corner. 3 men in dark hoodies surrounded someone in an expensive coat. Even in the dim light, I could see the glint of metal in one of their hands. Antonio sends his regards, another voice hissed. The man in the coat stood perfectly still, his hands at his sides. He was tall, broad-shouldered, wearing what looked like $1,000 suit even in this filthy alley. His dark hair was perfectly styled despite the circumstances, and there was something about the way he held himself, proud, unafraid, like a king facing his executioners. Get it over with then, he said, his voice deep, calm, with the faintest trace of an Italian accent. But know that this won't end with me. The knife moved fast. Too fast, I didn't think. I just moved. My body collided with his just as the blade came down and white-hot pain exploded through my left shoulder. I gasped, stumbling against the stranger as warm blood began to seep through my uniform. What the hell? One of the attackers shouted. The man I'd thrown myself in front of moved like lightning. In seconds, all 3 attackers were on the ground, groaning. He'd disarmed them so quickly I barely saw it happen. His movements were precise, lethal, professional. He turned to me, his dark eyes wide with something between shock and admiration. Up close, he was devastatingly handsome. Sharp cheekbones, full lips, eyes like melted chocolate. A thin scar ran along his left temple, and day-old stubble covered his strong jaw. Madonna Santa, he breathed, his hands immediately going to my wounded shoulder. His fingers were warm, gentle, despite their obvious strength. Why would you do such a thing? I tried to speak, but dizziness was washing over me in waves. The metallic taste of fear filled my mouth, and I could feel myself swaying. His arm went around my waist, steadying me against his solid chest. I caught his scent, expensive cologne mixed with something purely masculine. It made my head spin even more. I couldn't just ... I managed to whisper, looking up into his intense gaze. I couldn't just watch them hurt you. He stared at me for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then he leaned down, his lips close to my ear, his breath warm against my skin. You just saved the man everyone fears, he whispered. Before I could process what he meant, he was lifting me into his arms like I weighed nothing. My protests died in my throat as the world tilted dangerously. What's your name, Angelo? He asked softly, carrying me toward a black Mercedes that materialized from the shadows. The car's engine was running, and a man in a dark suit stood by the driver's door, his hand inside his jacket. Maya, I breathed, my vision blurring. Maya Rodriguez. Maya, he repeated, and my name sounded like a prayer on his lips. I'm Vincent Romano, and I'm going to take care of you. Vincent Romano. Even through my pain and confusion, the name sent a chill down my spine. I'd heard whispers about the Romano family, about their control over Boston streets, about the man who'd taken over after his father's death 3 years ago. No, I said weakly, trying to push away from him. No, I need to go home. My daughter ... double quotes. Your daughter will be safer if you let me help you, he said firmly, settling me into the back seat of the Mercedes. The leather was buttery soft, and the interior smelled like expensive cigars and power. This wound needs proper medical attention. I can't afford ... I started, but he placed a finger gently against my lips. Bella, you saved my life. The least I can do is save yours. The car began to move, gliding silently through the empty Boston streets. Vincent kept pressure on my wound with a pristine white handkerchief that was rapidly turning crimson. His touch was impossibly gentle for hands that had just taken down 3 armed men. Where are we going? I asked, though part of me already knew I was in no position to resist whatever he decided. To someone who can fix this properly, he said, his eyes never leaving my face. Someone who won't ask questions? I should have been terrified. Every rational part of my brain screamed that I was in a car with one of the most dangerous men in Boston, bleeding from a knife wound I'd received protecting him from people who clearly wanted him dead. But looking into his dark eyes, feeling the warmth of his hand holding mine, I felt safer than I had in years. Why? I whispered. Why what, cara mia? Why were they trying to kill you? His expression darkened for a moment. Because some people mistake mercy for weakness. They think because I don't rule through fear alone, I can be easily removed. His thumb traced gentle circles on the back of my hand. They were wrong. The car pulled into an underground garage beneath a building I didn't recognize. Vincent helped me out carefully, his strong arms supporting most of my weight. We took a private elevator to the top floor where a distinguished older man with silver hair and kind eyes waited. Dr. Bertelli, Vincent said in rapid Italian. She needs help. The doctor, because he was obviously a doctor, examined my wound with skilled hands while Vincent paced like a caged panther. The office was elegant, all dark wood and leather, with expensive art on the walls and a view of Boston Harbor. The cut is deep but clean, Dr. Bertelli said in accented English. You're very fortunate, young lady. A few inches to the right and ... double quotes, he didn't finish the sentence. As he cleaned and stitched my wound, I watched Vincent. He'd removed his suit jacket, revealing a crisp white dress shirt that stretched across his broad chest. His sleeves were rolled up, exposing strong forearms marked with what looked like old scars. When he caught me staring, his lips curved into the ghost of a smile. You should be more careful in dark alleys, he said softly. So should you, I replied, then immediately regretted my boldness. But Vincent's smile widened. Touché. There, Dr. Bertelli announced, applying the last bandage. Keep it dry for 48 hours. No strenuous activity. And take these? He handed me a bottle of prescription painkillers. Call me if there's any sign of infection. Thank you, I said, reaching for my purse to ask about payment. It's handled, Vincent said quickly. Then, to my surprise, he knelt beside my chair, bringing his face level with mine. Maya, I need you to understand something. By helping me tonight, you've put yourself in danger. The men who tried to kill me, their boss won't be happy they failed. If they find out about you ... double quotes, my blood ran cold. What are you saying? I'm saying I want to protect you. Both you and your daughter. I don't need protection, I said automatically. Though even as the words left my mouth, I knew they weren't true anymore. Vincent's eyes were infinitely gentle. Everyone needs protection sometimes, Kara. Even strong, brave women who throw themselves in front of knives for strangers. I can't get involved in your world, I whispered. I have Lucia to think about. And I have you to think about now, he said simply. Let me drive you home. Let me make sure you're safe. The drive to my apartment took 20 minutes through the quiet Boston streets. Vincent was silent, but I could feel his presence beside me like a warm fire. When we pulled up to my rundown building in Eastie, I saw him take in the graffiti-covered walls, the broken streetlights, the general air of urban decay. This is where you live? He asked, and there was something in his voice I couldn't identify. It's what I can afford, I said defensively. He was quiet for a long moment. How old is your daughter? 5. Her name's Lucia. Lucia, he repeated softly. A beautiful name. I gathered my courage. Mr. Romano, what you said about me being in danger ... double quotes. Vincent, he corrected gently. And yes, there's a possibility that Antonio Marchetti's men might come looking for you. They're not known for their subtlety or their mercy. Fear crawled up my spine. What should I do? Let me help you, he said again. I have people who can wash your apartment, make sure you and Lucia are safe. It would be temporary, just until I can resolve things with Marchetti. And what would that cost me? I asked quietly. His eyes flashed with something that might have been hurt. Nothing. You saved my life, Maya. I protect what's mine. I'm not yours, I said quickly. No, he agreed, but his gaze lingered on my face. Not yet. Before I could respond to that loaded statement, he was out of the car and opening my door. He walked me to the building entrance, his sharp eyes scanning every shadow, every doorway. Here, he said, pressing a business card into my hand. My private number. Call me if anything seems wrong. Anything at all. I looked down at the simple white card. Vincent Romano. No title, no company name. Just a phone number embossed in black. Thank you, I said. For everything. No, cara mia, he said, lifting my uninjured hand to his lips and pressing a soft kiss to my knuckles. Thank you. You reminded me tonight that there are still good people in this world. I watched from my third-floor window as his Mercedes disappeared into the night. My shoulder throbbed with pain, but it was nothing compared to the confusion churning in my chest. In the space of 1 hour, my quiet, predictable life had been turned completely upside down. I checked on Lucia, who was sleeping peacefully in her small bed, her dark hair spread across the pillow like silk. She looked so innocent, so perfect. How could I explain to a 5-year-old that her mother had gotten involved with the mafia? But as I lay in my own bed, staring at the ceiling, I couldn't stop thinking about Vincent's eyes when he knelt beside my chair. There had been something there, something that went beyond gratitude or even attraction. It was as if he'd been looking for someone like me his entire life. I touched the bandage on my shoulder and winced. Tomorrow I would have to call in sick to both my jobs. I couldn't afford to miss work, not with rent due next week and Lucia needing new winter clothes. But Vincent had said I was in danger. Was he just being paranoid, or were there really people out there who might hurt me because I'd helped him? My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Sleep well, Angelo. Tomorrow we talk about keeping you safe. I stared at the message for a long time before deleting it. But I couldn't delete the memory of his voice, the warmth of his touch, or the way he looked at me like I was something precious and rare. Vincent Romano was dangerous. He was everything I should stay away from. But as I finally drifted off to sleep, I couldn't help but feel that my life had just become infinitely more complicated, and possibly more meaningful than it had ever been before. The next morning arrived with gray skies and the sound of rain against my windows. Lucia bounced into my bedroom at 7 a.m., her dark eyes bright with curiosity. Mommy, why are you still in bed? And what happened to your arm? I sat up carefully, wincing as the movement pulled at my stitches. I had a little accident at work last night, baby. I need to stay home today. Are you going to be okay? She asked, climbing onto the bed with the trusting innocence that only children possess. I'm going to be fine, I assured her, smoothing her tangled hair. But we need to be extra careful for a while, okay? If anyone you don't know tries to talk to you or asks about me, you tell Mrs. Chun right away. Lucia nodded solemnly. Like stranger danger? Exactly like stranger danger. I called my supervisor at the restaurant and my manager at the cleaning service, explaining that I had a family emergency and wouldn't be in for a few days. Both were understanding but made it clear that missing too much work would be a problem. I couldn't afford to lose either job. By noon, Lucia was at kindergarten and I was alone in the apartment, nursing my sore shoulder and wondering if I'd imagined the entire previous night. Then my phone rang. Good morning, Maya. Vincent's deep voice sent shivers down my spine. How did you get this number? I asked. I have many resources, he said simply. How are you feeling? Sore, but alive thanks to you. Thanks to us, he corrected. We saved each other last night. How would you feel about meeting for lunch? I'd like to discuss some things with you. I don't think that's a good idea. Please, he said, and there was something vulnerable in that single word. 1 hour. A public place. I'll send a car. No cars, I said quickly. If we're going to meet, I'll take the T. Where then? I thought for a moment. The North End, Cafeteria. 2 o'clock? Perfect, Maya? Yes? Thank you for trusting me. After he hung up, I stared at my phone for a long time. What was I doing? This man was dangerous, possibly deadly, and definitely not the kind of person who should be in my life. But when I closed my eyes, I could still feel the safety of his arms around me, could still hear the gentle way he'd spoken my name. At 1:45, I was sitting in cafeteria, nervously nursing an espresso I couldn't afford. The North End was beautiful in the afternoon light, all narrow cobblestone streets and old-world charm. It was also Vincent's territory, I realized. Everyone here probably knew who he was. Bella? His voice came from behind me, and I turned to see him approaching my small table. In daylight, he was even more devastating than he'd been in the alley. He wore another perfectly tailored suit, this one charcoal gray with a white shirt that showed off his olive complexion. His dark hair was styled immaculately, and when he smiled at me, I felt my pulse quicken. You came, he said, sitting across from me. I said I would. In my experience, people often say things they don't mean. He signaled the waitress, who appeared instantly with a deferential smile. "2 espressi per favor." "Subito, Mr. Romano," she said, practically curtsying. I watched the interaction with fascination. "Do you own this place?" "My family has interests in many businesses in the North End," he said diplomatically. "But no, I don't own Cafeteria. I simply have a great deal of respect for the Antonellis who do." "Respect," I repeated. "Is that what you call it?" His lips quirked upward. "You're very direct, aren't you? When people try to kill you, it tends to make you cut through the bullshit pretty quickly." Vincent's expression grew serious. "About that, I've been thinking about what I said last night about you being in danger." My stomach tightened. And? I may have been overcautious. Antonio Marchetti is more of a businessman than a soldier these days. The men who attacked me were freelancers, probably paid to send a message rather than actually kill me. The likelihood that they even saw your face clearly is minimal. Relief flooded through me. So I'm safe? I believe so. But Maya ... He leaned forward, his intense gaze holding mine. I want to see you again. Not because of last night, not because of any danger or obligation. Because I can't stop thinking about you. My mouth went dry. Mr. Romano ... Bull quotes, Vincent. Vincent, you don't know anything about me. I'm a single mother who works 2 jobs just to keep a roof over my daughter's head. I live in a neighborhood you probably wouldn't drive through without bodyguards. We're from completely different worlds. Are we? He asked softly. Because when I look at you, I see someone who understands loyalty, family, sacrifice, someone who would throw herself in front of a knife to save a stranger. Those aren't qualities that have anything to do with money or neighborhoods. Kara, the waitress returned with our espressos, and I used the interruption to gather my thoughts. When she left, Vincent was still studying me with that unsettling intensity. "Tell me about your daughter," he said. "Why?" "Because she's obviously the most important thing in your life, and I want to understand what matters to you." I found myself talking about Lucia, her love of drawing, her fearlessness on the playground, her dream of becoming a veterinarian. Vincent listened with genuine interest, asking questions, smiling at the stories of her 5-year-old Bojik. "Her father?" he asked eventually. "Gone," I said shortly. He decided being a father was too much responsibility. Vincent's jaw tightened. Some men don't deserve the gifts they're given, and some women are better off alone. "Are you?" he asked. "Better off alone." I met his gaze. "I thought I was." "Until last night," Something shifted in his expression. Maya, I want to be clear about something. I'm not looking for a casual affair or a distraction. When I'm interested in a woman, I'm all in, completely, and I protect what's mine with everything I have. I'm not yours, I said again, but with less conviction than before. Not yet, he repeated, just as he had the night before. Vincent, even if I was interested, and I'm not saying I am, how could this possibly work? You single quotes re.you, and I'm just Maya from East Boston who can barely keep her lights on. Money is just a tool, Kara. It can't buy the things that really matter. It can't buy courage or kindness, or the kind of strength that makes a woman risk her life for a stranger. He reached across the table, covering my hand with his. It can't buy what I felt when I looked into your eyes last night. His hand was warm, strong, with calluses that spoke of work despite his obvious wealth. When his thumb traced across my knuckles, I felt heat shoot straight to my core. This is insane, I whispered. The best things usually are. We sat in silence for a moment, his hand still covering mine. Around us, the cafe hummed with quiet conversation, but I felt like we were in our own private world. If I were to consider this, I said carefully, if I were to say yes to seeing you again, what would that look like? Because I won't be someone's dirty little secret, and I won't have my daughter exposed to anything dangerous. Vincent's grip on my hand tightened. You would never be a secret, Maya. And your daughter's safety would be my priority just as much as yours. Any man who wants to be part of your life has to accept that Lucia comes first. Always. You say that now ... double quotes. I mean it now. And I'll mean it tomorrow and next month and next year. His voice was fierce with conviction. I've spent my entire life surrounded by people who want something from me. Money, power, protection, connections. Do you know what you wanted from me last night? I shook my head. Nothing. You saw someone in danger and you acted. No agenda, no angle, no calculation. Just pure instinctive goodness. His thumb was still moving across my skin, sending shivers up my arm. Do you have any idea how rare that is in my world? Vincent ... have dinner with me, he said suddenly, tomorrow night. Let me cook for you. You cook? My Nona made sure I could take care of myself. She said a man who can't feed a woman doesn't deserve one. Despite everything, I smiled. Your grandmother sounds like a wise woman. She was. So what do you say? Dinner? I promise no business talk, no discussions about last night, just good food and conversation. I should say no. Every rational part of my brain was screaming that this was a terrible idea. But looking into his dark eyes, remembering the gentleness of his touch and the way he protected me, I found myself nodding. Okay, but I need to find someone to watch Lucia. Bring her, he said immediately. I'd like to meet her. Absolutely not. Maya ... double quote. No, if we're going to do this, we do it slowly. And that means my daughter stays out of it until I'm absolutely certain about what this is. Vincent studied me for a moment, then nodded. You're right. You're protecting her, as you should. I respect that. Good. But Maya? Eventually, if this goes where I hope it goes, I'm going to want to be part of both your lives. All the way. The intensity in his voice made my breath catch. You're assuming a lot based on one evening. I'm hoping a lot based on one evening, he corrected. There's a difference. He paid for a coffee despite my protests and walked me to the T station. At the entrance, he stopped and turned to face me. Thank you, he said. For last night, for today. For giving me a chance. Thank you for saving my life after I tried to save yours. We're even then. Not even close, I said, thinking about the medical bills I wasn't going to receive. The protection he'd offered, the way he'd made me feel like I was worth something more than just survival. Vincent stepped closer, close enough that I could smell his cologne and feel the warmth radiating from his body. For a moment, I thought he might kiss me, and my heart hammered against my ribs. Instead, he lifted his hand to my cheek, his thumb tracing the line of my cheekbone with infinite gentleness. Until tomorrow, Bella Mia, he said softly. Then he was gone, disappearing into the crowd like a figure from a dream. I stood at the tea station entrance for several minutes, touching the spot where his hand had been, wondering what the hell I'd just gotten myself into. That evening, as I helped Lucia with her homework and made dinner from whatever was left in our nearly empty refrigerator, I couldn't stop thinking about Vincent. The way he'd listened when I talked about my daughter. The respect in his voice when he'd agreed to keep Lucia out of our whatever this was. The promise that if things got serious, he'd want to be part of both our lives. It had been 3 years since Lucia's father had walked out, claiming he wasn't ready for the responsibility of a family. 3 years of doing everything alone, of being strong because I had no other choice, of convincing myself that I didn't need anyone else. But Vincent made me remember what it felt like to be protected, to be valued, to be seen as more than just a single mother struggling to get by. He made me remember that I was still a woman with desires and dreams that went beyond just survival. "Mommy, you're smiling funny," Lucia observed from her seat at our small kitchen table. "I'm just thinking, baby." "About what?" "About possibilities." The next evening, I stood in front of my closet trying to figure out what to wear to dinner with the mafia boss. I owned exactly 3 dresses. One black cocktail dress I bought for my sister's wedding 2 years ago. One sundress that had seen better days, and one professional chic I wore to parent-teacher conferences. The black dress it was. Vincent had given me an address in Beacon Hill, which I should have expected. The house, when I found it, was a beautiful brownstone with ivy climbing the walls and expensive cars parked along the street. I stood on the sidewalk for a full minute, questioning my sanity. Before I could lose my nerve, the front door opened and Vincent appeared. He was dressed casually, dark jeans and a black sweater that clung to his broad chest. Somehow he looked even more dangerous this way, like a predator pretending to be tame. "Bella," he said, his eyes taking in my appearance with obvious appreciation. "You look stunning." "Thank you," I said, suddenly self-conscious about my discount dress and bargain shoes. If Vincent noticed my discomfort, he didn't show it. He simply offered me his arm and led me inside. The house was gorgeous, all hardwood floors and crown molding, with artwork that probably cost more than I made in a year. But it felt lived in, comfortable, not like a museum. "Did you grow up here?" I asked as he took my coat. "No, this is my wedding gift to myself after I took over the family business," he said. "I wanted something that was mine, not inherited." "Wedding gift?" He smiled ruefully. "Poor choice of words. Housewarming gift. So you've never been married?" "Engaged once. It didn't work out." His expression darkened slightly. "She decided she preferred my money to my company and found someone willing to provide one without the other." "I'm sorry." "Don't be." It taught me to be more careful about people's motivations. He led me to the kitchen, which was clearly the heart of the house. It was warm and inviting, with copper pots hanging from hooks and the scent of herbs and garlic filling the air. "Sit," he said, gesturing to a bar stool at the large island. "Wine? Please." He poured 2 glasses of red wine from a bottle that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. As he moved around the kitchen, I watched him work. His movements were confident, practiced, and there was something deeply attractive about seeing this powerful man doing something so domestic. "You really do cook," I said, taking a sip of wine that was like velvet on my tongue. Nona's influence. She said cooking was an act of love, and any man who couldn't express love through food was incomplete. He glanced at me over his shoulder. She also said the way to judge a person's character was to watch how they treated people who couldn't do anything for them. Wise woman. The wisest. She would have liked you, I think. How do you know? Because she valued strength and kindness above everything else. And you, cara mia, have both in abundance. He was making some kind of pasta sauce, and the smell was incredible. As he worked, he told me stories about his grandmother, how she'd ruled the family with an iron fist wrapped in a velvet glove, how she'd taught him to speak Italian and appreciate art and never back down from a fight. She sounds like an amazing woman, I said. She was the only person who never treated me differently after my father died, he said quietly. Everyone else either wanted something or was afraid of me. She just wanted me to be happy. How old were you when he died? 25? Too young to take over the family business, but old enough to know I had no choice. There was pain in his voice, and I found myself wanting to comfort him. That must have been terrifying. Terrifying doesn't begin to cover it. I had men twice my age who'd been loyal to my father, questioning my every decision. Rival families who thought a young, inexperienced leader would be easy to manipulate or eliminate. And I had no idea what the hell I was doing. But you figured it out. I had help. And I learned that sometimes the best way to lead is to surround yourself with people who are smarter than you and actually listen to their advice. Is that what you did last night? Listen to advice? Vincent paused in his stirring. No, last night I made a mistake. I should have brought back up to that meeting. I got cocky, thought I could handle Marchetti's people alone. He turned to look at me. If you hadn't been there, but I was there. Why? He asked suddenly. Why did you do it? You don't know me, had no reason to risk yourself. I thought about it for a moment. When I was little, my mother always told me that we were put on this earth to take care of each other. That turning away when someone needed help was the same as being the one causing the harm. Your mother sounds like a wise woman, too. She was. She died when I was 18. I'm sorry. It was a long time ago. But her voice is still in my head sometimes, telling me to do the right thing even when it's hard. Vincent nodded slowly. Nona used to say something similar. That our actions define us more than our circumstances. Smart women, our grandmothers, the smartest. Dinner was incredible, homemade pasta with a sauce that was complex and rich, paired with fresh bread and more of that amazing wine. Vincent was an attentive host, refilling my glass, making sure I had enough to eat, keeping up a steady stream of conversation that ranged from books to music to travel. Where's the furthest you've been from Boston? He asked as we finished eating. New Hampshire, I said, slightly embarrassed. We went camping when I was a kid. You? Italy several times to visit family, France for business. Japan because I wanted to understand different approaches to honor and loyalty. He paused. But I'd trade all of those trips for the chance to see New Hampshire through your eyes. Why? Because I think you see things differently than I do. More purely. Or more naively. No, he said firmly. There's nothing naive about you, Maya. You're one of the strongest people I've ever met. I don't feel strong most of the time. I feel like I'm barely holding everything together. Vincent reached across the table, taking my hand in both of his. Strength isn't about never struggling, Kara. It's about getting up every day and fighting for the people you love, even when you're exhausted and scared and don't know how you're going to make it work. His words hit me, like a physical blow, because that's exactly how I felt most days. How do you know? Because I see it in your eyes. The same look my mother had when she was trying to hold our family together after my father's first heart attack. The same look Nona had when she was raising 6 children on her own after my grandfather died. What happened to your mother? Car accident when I was 15. After that, it was just me, my father, and Nona. I'm sorry. That must have been horrible. It was. But it taught me that life is fragile and the people we love are precious. We can't waste time on things that don't matter. His thumb was tracing patterns on the back of my hand, and I felt that same electric connection I'd felt in the cafe. Is that what this is? I asked softly. You not wanting to waste time? This, he said, his voice low and intense, is me recognizing something extraordinary when I see it. This is me knowing that I've spent 35 years waiting to meet someone who can make me feel the way you do. Vincent ... double quotes. I know it's crazy. I know it's too fast, too intense, too everything. But Maya, I've never felt this way before. Never wanted to protect someone the way I want to protect you. Never wanted to know everything about someone the way I want to know about you. I stared into his dark eyes, seeing sincerity and something that looked like vulnerability. What are you saying? I'm saying that I'm falling for you, hard and fast and completely. And if you'll let me, I want to explore where this goes. My heart was hammering so hard I was sure he could hear it. This is insane. The best things usually are, he said again, lifting my hand to his lips and pressing a soft kiss to my palm. The touch sent fire racing through my veins. I should pull away, should remind him about all the reasons this couldn't work. Instead, I found myself leaning closer. Maya, he whispered, and there was a question in the way he said my name. Yes, I breathed, not even sure what I was agreeing to. He stood slowly, drawing me up with him. His hands framed my face, thumbs stroking across my cheekbones as he looked down at me with an expression that made my knees weak. Are you sure? He asked. No, I said honestly. I'm not sure about anything right now, but I want this. I want you. He kissed me then, soft and sweet and gentle, like I was something precious that might break. But when I pressed closer, my hands fisting in a sweater, his control seemed to snap. The kiss deepened, became urgent, desperate, full of 2 days' worth of tension and want. I could taste the wine on his tongue, could feel the barely contained power in his hands as they slid into my hair. When we finally broke apart, we were both breathing hard. Stay, he said against my forehead. Please, I can't. Lucia ... I know. But soon, when you can arrange it? I nodded, not trusting my voice. He drove me home in comfortable silence, his hand resting on my thigh in a way that felt both possessive and protective. When we reached my building, he walked me to the door, just as he had 2 nights ago. Thank you for tonight, I said. For dinner, for ... everything. Thank you for giving me a chance, he replied, then kissed me again, soft and lingering. I'll call you tomorrow. Okay, Maya? What we talked about tonight, about this being crazy and too fast ... yeah? I don't care. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. As I watched his car disappear down the street, I realized I felt the same way. It was terrifying and exhilarating and completely insane. But for the first time in years, I felt like I was living instead of just surviving, and that was worth any risk. Over the next 2 weeks, Vincent became a constant presence in my life. He called every morning before I went to work, checking on how I'd slept, whether my shoulder was healing properly, if I needed anything. He sent flowers to the restaurant where I worked, not expensive arrangements that would embarrass me in front of my coworkers, but simple bouquets with handwritten notes that made me smile. We had coffee twice more, dinner once, and one long afternoon walk through Boston Common where he told me about his childhood, and I found myself sharing stories about Lucia that I never told anyone else. He was nothing like what I'd expected from a man in his position. Yes, he was clearly powerful. People jumped when he spoke, and there was an edge of danger that never quite left him. But with me, he was gentle, patient, endlessly interested in the details of my ordinary life. Tell me about your worst day at work, he said one afternoon as we sat by the pond watching ducks paddle around in circles. Why do you want to hear about that? Because I want to know everything about you. The good days, the bad days, the boring days. All of it. So I told him about the day 3 customers had yelled at me for things that weren't my fault. When I'd spilled a tray of food on my businessman's expensive suit, when I'd gotten home to find a notice that our heat was being shut off for non-payment. What did you do? He asked. About the heat. Borrowed money from my sister. Again. I looked down at my hands. I hate asking for help. Independence is admirable, Kara. But everyone needs help sometimes. Easy to say when you have unlimited resources. Is it? He was quiet for a moment. Maya, can I tell you something? Of course. The night you saved me, I was coming back from a meeting where I'd asked for help. From people I'd rather not be indebted to for a problem I should have been able to solve myself. I turned to study his profile. What kind of problem? The kind that could destroy everything I've worked to build. Someone has been skimming money from our legitimate businesses, setting up our people to be arrested, feeding information to our enemies. I've been trying to handle it internally, but ... But sometimes pride gets in the way of good sense. I was so determined to prove I could handle everything alone that I almost got myself killed. Did you figure out who it was? Vincent's expression darkened. My cousin, Marco, my father's brother's son. Someone I trusted completely. Oh, Vincent, I'm so sorry. Family betrayal is the worst kind, he said simply. It makes you question everything you believe about loyalty and love. What did you do? What I had to do? But it wasn't easy. I didn't ask for details and he didn't offer them. But I could see the pain in his eyes, the weight of decisions that had cost him more than money or power. Is that why you were alone that night? Because you couldn't trust anyone else? Partly. And partly because I was too proud to admit I needed backup. He looked at me then, his dark eyes intense. You saved me in more ways than one that night, Maya. What do you mean? You reminded me that not everyone has an agenda. That sometimes people do the right thing just because it's right, not because of what they'll get in return. Vincent ... double quotes. I know you still have doubts about this, about us. And I understand why. But I need you to know that what I feel for you isn't gratitude or obligation or some kind of hero worship. It's real. It's deeper than anything I've ever felt before. Before I could respond, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it and his expression immediately shifted into something harder, more dangerous. I have to go, he said, standing quickly. Business. Is everything okay? It will be. He helped me up, his hands gentle despite the tension I could see in every line of his body. Can I call you later? Of course. He kissed me goodbye, but there was distraction in it, his mind already moving to whatever crisis required his attention. As I watched him walk away, I was reminded again of the reality of who he was, of the world he lived in. That evening, as I helped Lucia with her math homework, my phone rang. Not Vincent's number, but one I didn't recognize. Hello? Is this Maya Rodriguez? The voice was rough, unfamiliar. Who is this? Someone who knows about you and Romano. Someone who thinks you should be more careful about the company you keep. My blood turned to ice. I don't know what you're talking about. Sure you do, sweetheart. Pretty little waitress lives in Eastie with her kid. Lucia, right? 5 years old, goes to kindergarten at St. Anthony's? The phone slipped in my suddenly sweaty hand. Don't you dare ... double quotes. Relax. We're not interested in hurting kids. But Romano needs to learn that his actions have consequences. And sometimes those consequences affect the people he cares about. What do you want? For you to deliver a message. Tell your boyfriend that Antonio Marchetti doesn't forget. Tell him that what goes around comes around. Tell him to watch his back. The line went dead. I sat staring at the phone for several minutes, my hands shaking. Lucia was still working on her homework, oblivious to the threat that had just entered our lives. The normal sounds of our apartment, the hum of the refrigerator, the tick of the wall clock, the distant noise of traffic, suddenly seemed amplified and ominous. I called Vincent immediately. Maya, is everything okay? No, I said, fighting to keep my voice steady. Someone just called me. They knew about Lucia, knew where she goes to school. There was a pause, and when Vincent spoke again, his voice was deadly quiet. What exactly did they say? I repeated the conversation word for word. By the time I finished, I could hear movement in the background, voices speaking rapid Italian. Pack a bag, Vincent said. Both of you, right now. What? Maya, listen to me carefully. Pack enough clothes for a few days. Don't overthink it, just grab what you need. I'm sending someone to pick you up. Vincent, I can't just disappear. I have jobs. Lucia has school ... double quotes. Your jobs and our school won't matter if you're dead, he said bluntly. Maya, please. Trust me. Let me protect you until I can resolve this. I thought you said we were safe. I thought you said Marchetti wasn't a threat. I was wrong. His voice was tight with anger at himself, at the situation, at the people who had dared to threaten us. I underestimated how far he'd go to get to me. But I won't underestimate him again. Where would we go? I have a safe house. Completely secure, comfortable, everything you need. It's temporary, just until I can eliminate the threat. Eliminate the threat? Maya, don't ask questions you don't want answers to. Just pack the bag and trust me to handle this. I looked at Lucia, who had moved on to her reading assignment, completely unaware that our lives had just been turned upside down again. How long? I don't know. A few days, maybe a week. Vincent, I can't afford to miss that much work. And Lucia can't miss that much school. Money isn't an issue. I'll take care of everything. And as for school, what's more important? A few days of kindergarten or her life? He was right and I knew it. But the thought of uprooting Lucia, of running and hiding, of putting her through this kind of trauma made me sick. Okay, I said finally. But Vincent, when this is over, we need to talk. Really talk. About whether this is something I can live with. I know, he said quietly. And I understand if you decide it's not. But right now, just let me keep you safe, please. 20 minutes later, there was a soft knock on my door. I looked through the peephole to see a woman about my age with kind eyes and a gentle smile. Maya? I'm Sophia Benedetti. Vincent sent me. I opened the door cautiously. Sophia was beautiful in an understated way, with dark hair and olive skin, wearing jeans and a sweater that looked expensive but not flashy. He thought you might be more comfortable with a woman picking you up, she explained. Especially with your daughter. Are you? Vincent's cousin, well, sort of. It's complicated. But yes, I'm family. Lucia looked up from her book with curiosity. Mommy? Who is this? This is Miss Sophia, I said, trying to keep my voice calm and normal. We're going to go stay with her for a few days, like a little vacation. A vacation? But I have school tomorrow. You'll be able to go back to school very soon, Sophia said, kneeling down to Lucia's level. And where we're going, there's a big backyard with swings and a pool. Do you like to swim? Lucia's eyes lit up. I love swimming. But Mommy says pools are too expensive. Well, this one's free, Sophia said with a smile. And I bet Vincent has some books you might like to read. Who's Vincent? I looked at Sophia helplessly. I hadn't told Lucia about Vincent yet, hadn't known how to explain his presence in our lives. Vincent is a friend of your mom's, Sophia said smoothly. He's the one who wanted to make sure you and your mom have a safe place to stay for a few days. As we drove through the Boston streets in Sophia's luxury SUV, I found myself studying her. She was clearly from Vincent's world. The car, the clothes, the way she moved with confidence and authority all spoke to wealth and power. But she was also warm with Lucia, patient with her questions, and seemed genuinely concerned about our safety. How long have you known Vincent? I asked quietly while Lucia dozed in the back seat. Since we were children. Our families have been ... associated for generations. And what do you do? Sophia smiled. I help people. Women and children mostly who find themselves in situations they can't handle alone. Like witness protection? Something like that. The safe house turned out to be a beautiful colonial in a suburb I didn't recognize, surrounded by trees and set back from the road behind a high fence. It looked like something from a magazine, perfectly manicured lawn, flower beds, a porch with hanging baskets. This is gorgeous, I said as Sophia punched in a code at the gate. Vincent's grandmother left it to him, she explained. He's never been able to bring himself to sell it, even though he doesn't use it much. Too many memories. Inside, the house was warm and inviting, decorated with antiques and family photographs. There was clearly a security system. I could see cameras and sensors, but it felt more like a family home than a fortress. You'll be in the master bedroom upstairs, Sophia said, leading us through the house. Lucia, there's a room right next to your mom's with toys and books and anything else a smart 5-year-old might need. Lucia ran ahead to explore her temporary room, and I could hear her exclaim with delight over something she'd found. Thank you, I said to Sophia, for being so good with her. She's a beautiful child. Vincent said she was special, but he didn't mention how bright she is. Vincent talked about Lucia? He talks about both of you, constantly. Sophia's smile was knowing. I've never seen him like this before. Like what? Happy, really genuinely happy. And terrified, which is new for him. Terrified of what? Of losing you, of not being good enough for you, of his world destroying something beautiful before he has a chance to protect it. Before I could respond, my phone rang. Vincent, are you there safely? He asked without preamble. Yes, Sophia's been wonderful, and Lucia loves her new room. Good, I need to ask a favor. What? Stay inside the house. Don't go into the yard, don't answer the door, don't let Lucia outside. There are people watching the house, my people, but I need you to be extra careful. How long, Vincent? I'm working on it. I promise, as soon as it's safe, I'll bring you home. Will you be able to visit? Not until this is resolved. I won't risk leading anyone to you. The thought of being separated from him, of not knowing if he was safe, made my chest tight with anxiety. Vincent, be careful, please. I will, Maya? Yeah? I love you. The words hung in the air between us, and I felt my heart stop and start again. I started, then stopped. Be safe. Come back to me. Always, he promised. After he hung up, I stood in the beautiful, empty house and wondered what I'd gotten myself into. 3 weeks ago, my biggest problem was paying rent on time. Now I was hiding from mafia assassins with the man I was falling in love with, who had just told me he loved me, fighting a war I didn't understand. But as I watched Lucia playing happily in her temporary room, as I felt the safety and security that Vincent's resources provided, I realized something important. I wasn't just falling in love with Vincent Romano. I was already there. The next 3 days passed in a strange bubble of domesticity and tension. Sophia visited every morning and afternoon, bringing groceries and updates that never contained much real information. Vincent called twice a day, once in the morning to check that we were okay, once at night to say goodnight to both me and Lucia. Lucia adapted to our temporary situation with the resilience of childhood, treating it like an adventure. She swam in the pool, read books from the extensive library in her room, and peppered Sophia with questions about everything from her job to her family to whether she knew any other little girls. I was a wreck, being cooped up, not knowing what was happening. Watching the news for any mention of violence that might involve Vincent, it was torture. I called in sick to both my jobs again, knowing I was probably going to lose at least one of them. I worried about bills, about Lucia's routine being disrupted, about what would happen if this dragged on for weeks. Most of all, I worried about Vincent. On the 4th evening, as I was giving Lucia a bath, I heard cars in the driveway. Multiple cars. My heart leaped into my throat, and I quickly wrapped Lucia in a towel and carried her to her room. Stay here, baby. Just for a minute, okay? Mommy, you're scaring me. Everything's fine. I'll be right back. I crept downstairs, my pulse hammering in my ears. Through the front window, I could see 3 black SUVs parked in the circular drive. Men in suits were getting out, and my first instinct was to run. Then I saw Vincent emerge from the lead vehicle, and relief nearly knocked me to my knees. I threw open the front door and ran to him, not caring about caution or dignity. He caught me in his arms, lifting me off the ground and holding me so tightly I could barely breathe. It's over, he whispered against my hair. It's over, Kara. You're safe. What happened? Later, he said, setting me back on my feet but keeping his hands on my face. Right now, I just need to hold you. We stood in the driveway for several minutes, just holding each other. Vincent looked exhausted. There were dark circles under his eyes and lines of stress around his mouth that hadn't been there before. Mommy? Lucia's voice came from the front door. Is that Vincent? Vincent turned toward the house, and I saw his expression soften as he took in my daughter standing in the doorway in her pajamas, her dark hair damp from her bath. Yes, baby, this is Vincent, I said. Vincent, this is my daughter, Lucia. Vincent walked slowly toward the house, and I could see him making an effort to appear less intimidating. He knelt down when he reached the porch, bringing himself to Lucia's eye level. Hello, Lucia, he said gently. It's very nice to finally meet you. Are you the one who has the house with the pool? She asked with 5-year-old directness. I am. Did you like swimming? I loved it. And Sophia showed me how to do a handstand underwater, and there are fish in the pond in the backyard, and my room has a bookshelf that's taller than Mommy. Vincent smiled, the first genuine smile I'd seen from him since he'd arrived. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Maybe sometime you can come back and swim again. Can we, Mommy? Can we come back? I looked at Vincent, seeing the question in his eyes that matched my own. Where do we go from here? We'll see, baby, I said. Right now, let's get you ready for bed. An hour later, Lucia was asleep in the master bedroom, and Vincent and I were sitting in the living room with glasses of wine. He'd sent his men away and dismissed Sophia, leaving us alone for the first time in 4 days. Tell me what happened, I said. Vincent was quiet for a long moment, staring into his wineglass. Marchetti is dead. I felt the blood drain from my face. You killed him? No. He tried to kill me. My people defended me. Unfortunately, he didn't survive the encounter. Vincent ... double quote. Maya, he was never going to stop. As long as he was alive, you and Lucia were in danger. I couldn't live with that. What about his organization? Won't they want revenge? His organization was weak, held together by fear and stupidity rather than loyalty or respect. With him gone, it'll collapse within weeks. His lieutenants are already reaching out to discuss terms for absorption into other families. So it's really over? It's really over. He looked at me then, his dark eyes serious. But Maya, I need you to understand what this means. What I am, what my life involves. This won't be the last time someone threatens me or tries to use the people I care about to get to me. If we're going to be together, this is the reality you'll be living with. I set down my wine glass and took his hands in mine. Vincent, 4 days ago, someone threatened my child. Someone knew where she went to school, knew her schedule, knew enough about our lives to scare me more than I've ever been scared before. He started to speak, but I held up a hand. But you know what else happened? You protected us. You moved us somewhere safe. You made sure we had everything we needed. You made sure Lucia was comfortable and happy even though she didn't understand what was happening. You put our safety above everything else, including your own convenience. That's what any decent man would do. No, Vincent. That's what a man who loves his family does. And that's what you did. You treated us like family. His grip on my hands tightened. Is that what you think we are? Family? I think we could be. If you want that, if you're willing to accept that Lucia comes first, always. And that sometimes that might mean making choices that don't make sense from a business perspective. Maya, your daughter's safety and happiness will always be my priority, along with yours. That's not negotiable, even if it means giving up parts of your life that you're not ready to give up. Vincent was quiet for a moment. Can I ask you something? Of course. When you threw yourself in front of that knife, what went through your mind? That I couldn't let someone get hurt if I could stop it. Not concerned for your own safety or for what would happen to Lucia if something happened to you. Not in that moment, no. That's what it's like for me, he said quietly. When I think about you or Lucia being in danger, everything else disappears. My business, my responsibilities, my own safety, none of it matters compared to keeping me safe. Vincent ... I'm not saying the life I lead isn't dangerous. I'm not saying there won't be other threats, other times when we have to be careful. But I'm saying that I'll do whatever it takes to protect you, both of you. even if it means walking away from everything else. You'd do that? Really? Maya, 3 weeks ago, I thought I knew what I wanted from life. Power, respect, the ability to build something lasting for the next generation. But then I met you, and suddenly none of that mattered if I couldn't share it with someone who made me want to be better than I was. He brought my hands to his lips, pressing soft kisses to my knuckles. I love you, he said simply. I love your strength, your kindness, your fierce protection of your daughter. I love the way you make me feel like I'm more than just what I do for a living. And I love Lucia because she's part of you. And because she's an amazing little girl who deserves to have someone in her life who will always put her first. Tears were running down my cheeks, but I didn't care. I love you too. God help me, but I do. Then marry me, he said suddenly. What? Marry me? Not today, not tomorrow, but when you're ready, when you're sure. Let me be Lucia's father officially. Let me give both of you everything you deserve. I stared at him, my heart pounding. Vincent, that single quotes S dot double quotes. Crazy, I know. Too fast, too soon, too everything. But Maya, I've never been more certain of anything in my life. You saved me in that alley, but you've been saving me every day since. You make me want to be the man you see when you look at me. And if I say yes, what does that look like? Do I become some kind of mafia wife, hosting dinner parties for criminals and pretending I don't know where the money comes from? Vincent smiled. You become my partner. In everything. You help me figure out how to transition the family business toward more legitimate enterprises. You help me use our resources to help people like you, single mothers, families who need protection, kids who need opportunities. You do that? I'd do anything to build a life with you that we could both be proud of. I looked into his dark eyes and saw the truth there. Saw the love and commitment and promise of a future that was better than anything I'd ever dared to dream of. Ask me again in 6 months, I said softly. 6 months? I want Lucia to know you. I want to be absolutely sure that this is right for all of us. And I want to see what it looks like to build something together before we make it permanent. Vincent nodded slowly. 6 months, but Maya. Yeah? I'm going to spend every day of those 6 months proving to you that this is real, that I'm worthy of you and Lucia, and that we can build something beautiful together. I'm counting on it. He kissed me then, soft and sweet and full of promise. When we broke apart, we were both smiling. So what happens now? I asked. Now I take you home. Tomorrow you go back to work if you want to, or you let me help you find something better if you don't. Lucia goes back to school. We figure out what normal looks like for us. And your business? We'll adapt to accommodate the most important thing in my life, which is you, he said simply. Both of you. Later that night, as we got ready to leave the safe house, I found Lucia's drawing pad on the kitchen table. She'd been working on a picture while I was talking to Vincent, a drawing of 3 people standing in front of a house with a pool. Who are these people, baby? I asked. That's you, and that's me, and that's Vincent, she said matter-of-factly. We're a family. I looked at Vincent, who was standing in the doorway watching us. His expression was soft, almost vulnerable. Is that what you want? I asked Lucia. For Vincent to be part of our family? She nodded enthusiastically. He makes you smile, Mommy, and he has really good cookies. Vincent laughed. Well, if I pass the cookie test, double quotes. Oh, you definitely passed the cookie test, Lucia said seriously. Sophia showed me the kitchen, and you have like 6 different kinds. Then I guess it's settled, I said, ruffling her hair. As we drove back to our apartment in East Boston, Lucia fell asleep in the backseat and Vincent reached over to take my hand. Thank you, he said quietly. For what? For giving me a chance. For trusting me with the most important thing in your life. For letting me hope that I could be part of this. Thank you for seeing us as worth protecting. Worth changing for. Maya, you have no idea how long I've been waiting for someone to make me want to be better than I am. And you have no idea how long I've been waiting for someone to make me feel like I deserve more than just survival. 6 months later, on a warm spring evening, Vincent cooked dinner for Lucia and me in the kitchen of our new house, not the mansion in Beacon Hill, but a comfortable colonial in a safe neighborhood with good schools and a backyard where Lucia could play. As I watched him help her with her homework while sauce simmered on the stove, as I saw the way she climbed onto his lap to show him her latest drawing, as I felt the peace and security that had become our new normal, I knew what my answer would be when he asked again. Because sometimes the most dangerous thing you can do is open your heart to love. And sometimes it's the only thing that can save you. Mommy, Lucia called from the kitchen table where she was working on math problems with Vincent's patient help. Can Vincent adopt me for real? I looked at Vincent, whose face had gone very still. What do you mean, baby? Sophia told me that when people love each other and want to be a family forever, sometimes the dad adopts the kids so they have the same last name. I want to be Lucia Romano. Vincent's eyes met mine across the kitchen, and I saw my own emotions reflected there, love, hope, and the recognition that our little girl had just made the decision for us. Well, I said, walking over to the table and sitting down next to them. I think that sounds like a wonderful idea. Really? Lucia bounced in her chair. Really, really? Really, really, Vincent confirmed, his voice thick with emotion. But first, I need to ask your mom something very important. He stood up, and to my shock, he pulled a small velvet box from his pocket and dropped to one knee beside my chair. Maya Rodriguez, he said, his voice steady despite the tears in his eyes. Will you marry me? Will you let me be Lucia's father and your husband? Will you let me love both of you for the rest of my life? I looked at the ring, a simple, perfect solitaire that caught the light from the kitchen window. Then I looked at Lucia, who was clapping her hands with delight. Finally, I looked at Vincent, this man who had entered our lives in violence, brought us nothing but love and protection and the promise of a better future. Yes, I whispered. Yes to all of it. As Vincent slipped the ring onto my finger and Lucia threw her arms around both of us. I thought about that night 6 months ago when I'd seen a stranger in danger and made a split-second decision to help him. I'd thought I was saving his life. I hadn't realized I was saving my own. So, Vincent said a few minutes later, once Lucia had examined my ring from every angle and pronounced it sparkly enough for a princess, when do you want to have the wedding? Can we do it soon? Lucia asked before I could answer. I want to be Lucia Romano before first grade starts, Vincent laughed. I think that can be arranged. What do you think, Cara Mia? A summer wedding? I think, I said, looking at the two people I loved most in the world. That sounds perfect. And it was.